The Galactic Empire had existed for over 10,000 years. It stretched across hundreds of star systems and ruled over dozens of alien species with an iron grip. Its fleets were massive, its technology advanced, and its pride unmatched. No race had ever dared to challenge its power, until it discovered Earth. At first, Earth was just a small blue planet at the edge of a forgotten arm of the galaxy, full of noise, pollution, and strange broadcasts. The Empire's observers watched quietly from the shadows. They studied the humans, their wars, their machines, and their strange emotions. Reports were sent back to the Central Command, and the judgment was quick and unanimous. Humans were loud, proud, emotional, and weak. Their weapons were outdated, their ships were few, and their knowledge of the galaxy was close to nothing. The High Council of the Empire scoffed at the very idea that humans could ever be a threat. Some even joked that humans still believed they were alone in the universe, not knowing that they had already been watched for decades. But one human did know. His name was Admiral Roland Graves, a veteran of Earth's Space Defense Division, and the only man who had ever come face to face with a shadow ship from the Empire. It had happened 6 years earlier when an unidentified vessel entered the solar system. Most believed it was a natural event or a drifting asteroid. But Graves wasn't so sure. His instincts told him otherwise. He ordered a covered scan and tracked the object until it disappeared. What he found terrified him. It wasn't a rock, and it wasn't natural. It was an alien probe. When he tried to report his findings, he was ignored. Politicians laughed it off. Scientists said it was impossible. Earth was too small, too unimportant to attract attention from an advanced alien race. But Graves knew better. He began pushing for a secret program, something that could protect Earth in case the day came when that same probe returned with an army behind it. Years passed, and the idea faded from memory for most people. Life continued. Earth grew more connected, more advanced, but still locked within its own solar system. Then, everything changed. Without warning, a strange signal was picked up from deep space. It was not a natural wave, nor a random frequency. It was clear, structured, and alien. The message was short and terrifying. This system is now property of the Galactic Empire. Surrender all control or face complete destruction. The message repeated in over 50 languages, including English, Chinese, Arabic, and Russian. Panic spread across Earth. People thought it was a joke, a prank by some hacker. But satellites soon detected the truth. A fleet was coming. Not just any fleet, but a massive, organized group of warships heading directly toward Earth. The world governments scrambled to prepare, but they were not ready. Their defense systems were built to fight each other, not a force from the stars. As chaos erupted, one voice remained calm: Admiral Graves. He had not stopped preparing. In a hidden base under Antarctica, his secret project was complete. He called it Valkyrie 1, a warship unlike anything Earth had ever built. It was powered by a new kind of reactor, armed with experimental weapons, and controlled by a learning eye. It had never seen combat, but Graves had faith in it. Still, he knew one ship wasn't enough to stop an entire fleet. That's why he tried one last thing: diplomacy. Using Earth's deep space communication relay, Graves sent a message to the fleet. His voice was calm but firm. To the Galactic Empire, this is Admiral Roland Graves of Earth. You are approaching a sovereign planet. Leave now. We do not seek war, but we will defend ourselves. I repeat, turn back or face resistance. The message traveled through space and reached the Empire's commander, Lord Varnock, a proud and ruthless leader known for crushing rebellions and burning cities. He played the human's message twice, laughed, and ordered a reply. His message was brutal and mocking. You are a child barking at giants. We will not stop. Prepare to be erased. The Empire's council was updated. They found the entire situation amusing. A single planet, barely crawling into space, was trying to stand up against the oldest and most powerful force in the galaxy. There were jokes in the council chambers, laughter in the strategy rooms, and smug smiles across every alien face in the Empire's leadership. No one believed Earth could resist them. Why would they? The Empire had seen many civilizations before. Some begged for mercy, others fought hopelessly. All of them fell. Earth, they thought, would be no different. But they didn't understand humans. They didn't understand that humans fight hardest when they are cornered. They didn't understand that humans had been through centuries of war, disaster, and survival. They didn't understand that humans had one trait that no empire had ever faced before: defiance. Even with no real hope, Graves prepared his crew. Valkyrie 1 was launched into orbit under the cover of silence. It was Earth's last and only card. The people of Earth watched the sky in fear, unaware of the silent machine now rising into the darkness. The Empire believed Earth had no defenses. They believed Earth had no courage. They believed wrong. And deep in the void of space, the Empire's fleet continued forward, unaware that their greatest humiliation was waiting for them. The warning had been given. They had laughed. But they wouldn't be laughing for long. The silence of space was broken by the sudden ripple of distortion as the Imperial fleet emerged from hyperspace. Like shadows from another dimension, the warships appeared one after the other, their smooth black hulls glowing with ancient markings and humming with unstoppable power. Hundreds of ships formed a deadly pattern in the cold dark near the edge of the solar system, moving with perfect discipline, like a pack of predators circling their prey. At the center of the fleet was the Imperial flagship, Dominator Vex, a monster of a ship, 10 times the size of Earth's largest station, covered in weapon turrets and shield emitters. Inside the command bridge stood Lord Varnock, tall, armored, and confident, staring at the planet far ahead through the reinforced viewing glass. Earth looked peaceful from this distance, fragile even, and Varnock smiled. This would be over quickly. The humans had dared to send a warning, dared to claim they would resist, but he knew better. He had crushed stronger worlds in a single day. This was just another exercise, another victory waiting to be added to his list. He turned to his second-in-command and gave the order: move into position, begin transmission, and prepare to fire. As the Imperial fleet advanced, Earth's space stations and satellites picked up the movement. Alarms rang across military bases, defense outposts, and communication centers. For the first time in human history, the world saw what an alien invasion truly looked like. It wasn't just ships, it was an entire sky filled with death, moving slowly but confidently, as if nothing on Earth could stop it. News channels tried to stay calm, but fear spread quickly. People in cities paused to look up, even though the fleet was still beyond visible range. In the command center of Earth defense, officers worked without sleep, watching the data, tracking every signal. Some whispered prayers, others cursed under their breath, but all eyes turned toward the one hope Earth had, Valkyrie 1. Admiral Roland Graves stood inside the command deck of the Valkyrie, which was now positioned behind the dark side of the moon, hidden from the Empire's scanners. His crew, handpicked from the best Earth had to offer, were already at their stations. No one spoke of fear. Every face was calm, focused, and determined. The ship was silent but alive, its AI core pulsing softly like a heart ready for war. Graves didn't believe in luck. He believed in preparation. For years, he had watched Earth ignore the danger, laugh at his warnings, delay the funding, and dismiss the threat. But now, as the Empire's fleet approached like a moving wall of destruction, there was no more doubt. Earth's survival depended on one ship, and Graves would not let them down. The Empire began its broadcast. Across every satellite, every device, every frequency, the same message played. This is the Galactic Empire. Your planet now belongs to us. Surrender immediately. Resistance will lead to extinction. The message was repeated in perfect translation, spoken in a calm, commanding voice. It wasn't a threat. It was a fact, a statement delivered by a power that had never been challenged. But Earth didn't reply. No leaders came forward. No signals were sent. Just silence. The Empire assumed it was fear. The humans had finally understood the hopelessness of their position. Lord Varnock smiled and ordered his fleet to advance closer to Earth's orbit. But something was wrong. One of the Imperial scouts disappeared, then another. The fleet's sensors detected nothing unusual, but ships were vanishing, cut off mid-transmission. Varnock ordered his tactical officers to investigate, but before they could react, a third vessel exploded silently in space. A fourth was torn apart by an invisible force. The fleet slowed down, confusion spreading through the ranks. Somewhere out there, something was hunting them. And they couldn't see it. The Empire had never been hunted before. Then came the first clear sighting, just for a second. A blur moved between two cruisers and vanished again. One of the commanders reported a single contact, small but fast, unlike anything in their records. It wasn't a fleet. It wasn't a formation. It was one ship. Lord Varnock laughed. A single ship. That's what they send. But then the data came in. The ship was real, and it was powerful. It had destroyed 5 Imperial ships without taking a single hit. The laughter stopped. Varnock stared at the screen, watching as this unknown vessel moved like a ghost through his fleet, striking without warning, disappearing before counterattacks could lock on. He ordered full alert. All weapons to be armed. Shields raised. Formation tightened. Still, the damage continued. Valkyrie 1 revealed itself at last, rising from behind a dead asteroid, charging forward with a speed that confused even the Empire's advanced targeting systems. Its shape was unfamiliar to the enemy. Sleek, sharp-edged, with shifting armor and strange energy readings. It didn't fire in salvos. It fired with precision. Every shot counted. One beam, one explosion. The Imperial fleet, trained to fight massive armies, didn't know how to handle a lone predator. It wasn't a war. It was a slaughter. Graves sat calmly in the command chair, watching the battle unfold. He didn't waste words. He gave short orders. The AI handled the rest. The crew followed perfectly. The Valkyrie wasn't just a ship. It was a message. A message that humans would not kneel. As the Imperial flagship prepared to join the battle, Lord Varnock realized that something had changed. This was not a weak world. This was not a helpless species. The humans had built a weapon that could stand against the Empire's finest, and worse, they had the will to use it. His pride turned to anger, then to fear. He had underestimated them, and in war, underestimation was death. He ordered a full retreat, but it was too late. The Valkyrie was already closing in. Varnock watched as the dark shape of the human warship grew larger on his screen, weapons charging again. The Empire had arrived expecting to conquer. Instead, they had walked into a trap. Not a trap of numbers, but of spirit. The invincible fleet had arrived, but it was not Earth that would fall. The silence after the Empire's retreat was short-lived. Though a few of their ships had escaped into the vastness of space, Earth knew this was not the end. It was only the beginning. In the shadows of victory, preparations for the next wave began. Deep inside Valkyrie 1, Admiral Graves stood with arms behind his back, staring at the holographic map now covered in red alerts and moving signals. He knew the Empire would return stronger, more careful, and more brutal. This time, they would not underestimate humanity. But Graves also knew something the Empire had yet to learn. Earth had changed. The fear was gone. The hesitation had burned away. What remained was determination sharper than any blade and colder than space itself. Scientists, engineers, and military leaders worked together around the clock, upgrading systems, strengthening shields, developing newer weapons, and running endless simulations. Every nation had united under one banner, not out of politics, but out of survival. The human race was no longer defending itself. It was preparing to fight back. The time had come to show the galaxy that Earth would not wait for another attack. The time had come for the first strike. While the Galactic Empire regrouped at one of its outposts near the Hadron Expanse, ships arrived from all corners of its vast territories. Thousands of vessels formed the largest fleet the Empire had gathered in decades. Each one carried experienced soldiers, powerful weapons, and elite commanders. They had lost face, and in their pride, they refused to accept defeat by what they still considered a primitive world. Orders were clear: return to the Sol system, destroy the human warship, and reduce Earth to nothing more than a memory. But just as the fleet finished its final formation and prepared to move through the hyperspace lanes, sensors picked up an anomaly near the outer defense ring of the outpost. At first, it was ignored. One ship couldn't possibly be a threat, not when thousands stood ready. But as the readings grew clearer, confusion spread. The approaching object was moving too fast for something that size, and it was alone. Then came the identification code. Earth origin, Valkyrie 1. It wasn't hiding. It wasn't running. It was coming straight at the heart of the Empire's military staging area. The outpost's commanders scrambled to respond, raising shields and ordering defensive fire, but the Valkyrie moved like a phantom through the first wave of shots. Its new armor shimmered with layered energy, bending the light around it, causing weapons to miss their mark. Graves gave no speech. His actions were his message. The first barrage from Valkyrie's main cannon tore through two Imperial cruisers, sending them crashing into one another before they exploded. Targeting systems were jammed. Communications scrambled. The Empire's fleet, though massive, was struggling to understand what they were even fighting. Inside the outpost, alarms screamed, and officers shouted over one another as they tried to figure out how one ship was doing this much damage. The answer was terrifying. The Valkyrie had upgraded itself far beyond what was expected. Its technology, now fused with alien wreckage and experimental Earth designs, was no longer familiar to anyone, not even its original creators. In less than 10 minutes, 20 ships had been disabled. Not destroyed, disabled. Graves was sending a message. He could have turned every one of them to floating debris, but instead, he showed precision. He showed mercy. He showed control. The Valkyrie danced through enemy lines, disabling reactors, cutting off engines, blinding sensors, and then moving on before any counterstrike could land. Inside the Empire's command center, panic replaced pride. This wasn't a battle. This was a warning, delivered through action, not words. And yet, for all his power, Graves knew the limits of his ship. He could not stay forever. The numbers were overwhelming, and more reinforcements were on the way. As soon as his mission was complete, he pulled the Valkyrie back, disappearing once more into the dark sea of stars. But he had left his mark. Cameras recorded everything. Survivors told tales of how one ship had humiliated the Empire at its own doorstep. The footage spread faster than fire through the networks of the galaxy. For the first time, planets under the Empire's rule saw hope in the form of a ship built by humans. Back on Earth, cheers erupted in underground shelters and command bunkers. The footage had made it back. The message was clear. Humanity had struck first, and won. It wasn't about numbers or size anymore. It was about will, strategy, and sacrifice. For generations, Earth had looked to the stars with wonder, never imagining that war would come from above. Now those same stars had become the battlefield, and humans were no longer just survivors. They were warriors. The message from Graves was simple. Earth would never wait for destruction. It would take the fight to the enemy. And if the Empire thought it could scare them into silence, it had made the greatest mistake in its history. The Empire responded, of course. Propaganda filled their networks, declaring the humans as terrorists, cowards, and aggressors. But the damage was done. Whispers of rebellion spread across imperial colonies. Small worlds that had been crushed long ago began to talk again, to organize. If Earth could fight back, maybe they could too. What had started as a quiet, isolated rebellion was beginning to spread like a virus through the Empire's perfect order. And it had all started with one ship, one strike. Admiral Graves sat alone in the command deck of the Valkyrie, watching the stars move past through the reinforced glass. His crew rested, his systems cooled, and repairs were already underway. He felt no pride in destruction, but he knew it had to be done. Earth had bought itself time. Not peace, but time. And in war, time was the most powerful weapon of all. The next phase was coming. The Empire would come with all its fury. But now, they would come knowing something they had never believed possible: that humanity could strike first, and strike hard. In the aftermath of the first strike, the Galactic Empire trembled in silence. The attack had not just damaged their warships, it had shaken their belief in superiority. For centuries, the Empire had ruled with fear, believing no civilization could challenge its strength. But now, rumors of a human warship, the Valkyrie one, had spread like wildfire through the outer colonies and the capital systems alike. There were whispers in high command chambers, arguments among admirals, and growing concern among governors who had once spoken boldly of Earth's destruction. That single ship, powered by Earth's resolve and genius, had cracked the armor of invincibility the Empire had worn for generations. On countless worlds, people now looked up and wondered whether the Empire was truly unbreakable, or if it was finally beginning to fall. While the Emperor raged in silence behind closed walls, his advisors warned him of growing unrest. Slave races, conquered worlds, and even some within the Imperial fleet had started questioning orders. They feared the Valkyrie, yes, but more than that, they feared what it represented: a future where the Empire was not the only force to fear. The attack on the outpost had left over 50 ships disabled and several destroyed, but more damaging than the hardware was the humiliation, the loss of control, the realization that even the heart of their military power could be touched by outsiders. As the Valkyrie disappeared into deep space, the Empire attempted to rally, launching scouts, deploying patrol fleets, and promising revenge. But it was clear that something had changed. The humans hadn't just defended themselves, they had taken the war to the Empire. And worse, they had survived. On Earth, this shift was felt in every command center and hidden bunker, where leaders watched the galactic news channels closely. The enemy was hesitating. For the first time since the war began, Earth's satellites recorded no signs of advancing Imperial fleets. Instead, the distant sensors captured something unexpected: withdrawals. One by one, enemy vessels started pulling back from the Sol system's borders, not because they feared an immediate attack, but because they no longer trusted their own safety in the region. They were regrouping, yes, but also reassessing. The Empire had believed that the destruction of Earth's cities would break the human spirit, but it had done the opposite. Humanity had unified. Earth had built its weapon, launched it, and hit the Empire where it hurt the most. And that act had bought time. Precious, rare time. For Earth's scientists and engineers to work faster, to prepare more defenses, to build a second Valkyrie. In secret shipyards orbiting the moon and hidden beneath the icy oceans of Europa, more human ships were taking form, faster, deadlier, smarter. Humanity knew the Empire would not fall in one battle, but they also knew the key to victory was momentum. The Valkyrie's strike had changed the rhythm of war, and Earth was no longer reacting. They were planning. Across the galaxy, smaller civilizations who had once bowed to the Empire's power began to reconsider their loyalty. Messages arrived at Earth, encrypted and cautious, from rebel leaders, secret scientists, and military defectors, all wanting to talk, to share knowledge, to join a resistance they now believed could win. This ripple effect terrified the Empire more than any weapon. To prevent panic, the imperial government flooded the media with images of new war machines, of fleets being mobilized, and of the Emperor addressing the people, but it was all illusion. Behind the curtain, the Empire was stretched thin, its commanders divided between crushing potential rebellions and preparing for another strike from Earth. The Valkyrie had not just attacked, It had exposed the truth that the Empire could be defeated. Within the Empire's high command, a dangerous debate began. Some wanted to fall back further and focus on defense, while others demanded an immediate, overwhelming retaliation. But hesitation ruled every decision. What if another Valkyrie was waiting? What if Earth had more surprises? What if another loss would spark open revolt across the galaxy? Fear crept into the minds of the most powerful. On one of the inner core worlds, Admiral Solvin, once a proud voice of conquest, resigned in shame after his fleet's defeat by Valkyrie 1. His departure triggered more resignations, more questions, and cracks within the Imperial structure. Meanwhile, the Valkyrie had returned to Earth orbit, greeted not by cheering crowds, but by silent awe. The ship bore the scars of battle, but it was still whole, still powerful. Inside, Admiral Graves studied new data, planned the next move, and trained his crew for what was coming. He understood that war was not won by a single victory, but by holding the line until the enemy began to fall from within. And now it was happening. The Empire, once confident and aggressive, was pulling back. Its forward bases had gone silent. Its patrols were rare, and its presence near Earth had nearly vanished. But Graves knew this was not peace. It was the eye of the storm. The Empire was afraid, but it was not yet broken. It would regroup, it would evolve, and it would come again. Yet this moment, this rare breath of quiet, was the first time Earth had tasted true hope. The first time the stars felt just a little closer. The Empire had fallen back, not from weakness, but from fear. And that fear would only grow. The galaxy had changed, even if many still refused to admit it. The once invincible galactic empire, feared across every corner of space, had tasted something it never expected: defeat at the hands of a species they once mocked. It wasn't the size of Earth's fleet that caused this shift, nor the number of weapons they held, but the unexpected strength hidden in the heart of humanity. Their unbreakable will, their unpredictable strategies, and their courage to fight even when all odds were against them. After the Valkyrie 1 struck and returned unharmed, the Empire had been shaken deeply, its admirals retreating, its worlds quiet, and its commanders filled with uncertainty. On Earth, the silence from the Empire wasn't taken as a victory, but as a warning. The humans knew the calm wouldn't last forever. Still, that brief silence echoed louder than any explosion. Across space, civilizations that had lived in the Empire's shadow for generations watched closely. Some, secretly cheering for humanity, began to rise with a new hope, sending messages of alliance, requests for help, and offers of trade. Others, still afraid of the Empire's wrath, stayed silent but observed with growing interest. They saw something in humanity that they had never seen before: an unpredictable and unstoppable fire. The humans were different from every other race the Empire had ever crushed. They did not beg for mercy, they did not surrender, and they did not rely on ancient technologies or distant legends. They built their defense with scraps, united their people through tragedy, and rose together with a promise: they would never kneel. On the distant imperial capital, behind thick walls and guarded towers, the emperor himself was restless. His nights were filled with reports of internal fear, whispers of rebellion, and worst of all, respect being given to humans. His pride wounded and his command shaken, he ordered the creation of a new doctrine. Every imperial captain, soldier, and strategist would now be trained not just in the tactics of war, but in the study of humans. What were once jokes in imperial schools about Earth's weakness were now rewritten into warnings. Do not underestimate humanity became a repeated lesson. They are chaos in motion, fire in the void, one report read. They are not strong because of their weapons, are strong because they believe they cannot lose. Across the stars, this change in tone was felt in small but clear ways. Imperial patrol ships avoided Earth's borders now, rerouting through longer paths just to avoid detection. Frontier bases doubled their guards and started installing new defenses copied from damaged wreckage left by Valkyrie's weapons. Imperial scientists quietly studied human technology, not to steal it but to understand what made it work so differently. In hushed conversations, even among high-ranking officials, a new phrase began to appear: the human factor. It wasn't about firepower. It was about the unexpected. It was about how one warship, crewed by a defiant species from a small blue planet, had made the largest power in the galaxy take a step back. Meanwhile, Admiral Graves stood aboard Valkyrie 1, watching a holographic map filled with new data. Earth's allies were growing. Smaller species, once ignored or enslaved, were beginning to organize themselves. Human communication satellites helped spread encrypted messages across systems once darkened by the Empire's grip. Resistance was no longer a dream. It was happening. And Earth, the planet that once seemed too weak to matter, was now the center of it all. Graves wasn't seeking glory. He wasn't interested in leading an empire of his own. He knew better than anyone that power corrupted. What he wanted was simple: freedom for Earth, and a galaxy where no single voice ruled them all. But to make that vision real, the fight could not end. The fear the Empire felt needed to grow, not through cruelty, but through example. Humanity would not conquer. They would not invade. But they would protect. They would respond. And when they did, they would strike with precision, with courage, and without hesitation. This promise, made by every human ship now leaving the shipyards of Luna, spread faster than the Empire's propaganda. A new order was forming, not built by domination, but by unity. Not ruled by fear, but shaped by respect. And in every corner of space, when alien leaders spoke of the new power rising, they no longer laughed at the name. They spoke it carefully, with a new understanding. Earth was not to be ignored. The humans had changed the rules. They had proved that bravery, intelligence, and heart could win against even the most terrifying machines of war. And so, the galaxy shifted. Not all at once, and not without conflict, but something had started. The Empire remained, yes, but its throne no longer felt eternal. And in the minds of millions, from the deepest minds of slave worlds to the highest towers of imperial elites, one truth remained: fear could break empires, but respect could build peace, and Earth had earned both.